going on, guys? Rick here over at Steve's Music for another installment of Suck Less. And I'm not even going to play a single note today. I want to talk to you about scale length. We're in a part of the store that we're moving out of shortly, so PSA, we're going to downsize a little bit because Toronto rent is insane. Anyway, on to the topic at hand. What is scale length? Well, scale length is the part of the instrument where the string is actually on, it vibrates. Okay. Most people don't think this is very important, but a lot of you like to down tune a lot. Okay, and that's where scale length comes in. So I'm going to start by showing you the basics. This, as you've seen in a couple other videos, is a soon-to-be my guitar. This is a standard length guitar. What I mean by standard length is from the nut to the bridge. That's the actual playing surface, okay? That's the part of the string that makes noise. So if I measure it, it is 25 inches. For a guitar, that is standard length. Now, a lot of people like to put heavy gauge strings on guitars and tune them down. Well, first of all, if you tune down with normal strings, it works a little bit, but then they start to flub out and they get farty and they rattle off the frets. Every guitar is a balancing act, okay? The strings are pulling the neck up and the neck is resisting the pull. As you change the tension of the strings or the thickness of the strings, it's going to alter that. So when you go to a longer scale length or a shorter scale length, it holds lower or higher tunings better. So I'll show you what I mean. All of these are different scale lengths. Now you wouldn't really know what to look for unless somebody told you. So let's start with the high end. This is called a 1/4 size. This is actually tuned A to A. So it's gone up quite a bit. You can make a very small guitar. It's funny though because it's not actually 1/4 size. It is a 19-inch playing surface. So that is a 1/4 size small guitar. So that's what happens when you want to go up. Now most people are familiar with a bass guitar. This is a Fender Jazz Bass. This is one of my go-to bass guitars. Now if you measure the length of this, 34 inches. Okay, 34 to 35 inches is about normal for a bass. You're using gigantic strings, comparative to a guitar, to get 1 octave down. Now that seems like overkill. However, it's not really because you're throwing a lot lower frequencies with a bass. Now when it comes to guitar, if you want to drop tune your instrument, first thing you can do is get heavier gauge strings and pitch them lower. What you're trying to do is balance the tension, right? So lower tuning is less tension, higher gauge string or thicker string is more tension. So you're trying to get it to balance out. So let's take this Ibanez here. This is a baritone 6-string guitar. It doesn't look any different, right? But if you measure it, 27 inches. So you've got an extra 2 inches. So this comes stock set up for D to D. But with heavier gauge strings, you can go lower and it'll actually make sense. When you start getting too heavy gauge, what'll happen is instead of hitting the note clean, like when you pick it and going ba, it'll go ah, right, as the string vibrates. So ideally you want to avoid that so your guitar actually makes sense. And your tuning makes sense. Okay, this is a large baritone guitar from Gretsch. This guy is just under 30 inches. Now with this, you can actually get down to a bass's low E. The only thing is it sounds really thin and reedy. It doesn't sound like a bass, it sounds more like a guitar. It still has that tick-tick noise, right? It's still more trebly, but you can get that low with something like that. That is essentially a 6-string bass, but it'll go from B to B all the way down to E to E. A bass is E, right? Another thing you can get with basses is a short scale bass. This is still tuned to a bass's E to E, but it's a slightly shorter playing surface than most basses. Interestingly, it is 30 inches, which means that Gretsch and this bass are the same scale. One is set up like a bass guitar with heavy strings, one is set up like a guitar with lighter strings. They're both playing the same register, but they're going to sound very different. Well, I mean, not like a violin and a bass would, right? It's just guitar and bass, slight variation. Now, a way to get around this is a multi-scale instrument, which is the one I was holding in the original teaser for this. The problem is when you get long, you start to sacrifice the high strings, right? They get too tight and they don't sound right. However, if you're too short, your bass strings don't sound right either. So a way to get around that is what's called a multi-scale instrument, or a fan fret guitar. This Ibanez here has fan frets, and what that means is if this is pointing straight at you, the frets fan this way and they fan this way. If you take a look at the bridge, it's offset. So if I measure the high E, that is 25, which is a standard guitar. If I measure that low B string, it's a 27 inch. So every string has its own separate scale length. These stay in tune way better, hold pitch way better as well, but they're a little confusing to play. So if you want to drop tune your guitar or your bass, keep in mind scale length is the first place to start, right? There's a reason a mandolin plays high notes and it's really tiny. There's a reason a bass plays low notes and it's really low. It's not rocket science, it's just physics. So that's it. You want to play low? Check your scale length first, then try and measure your strings out and make sure the tension's about right. I think you usually want them between 20 and 25 pounds of pull, or test for us fishermen. And yeah, that's it. Not a note played, but you'll suck less. See you guys.